Two witnesses. The word geek wasn't invented when Pops was at school, but if it had, then John would have been one. He enjoyed maths, English and history, always did his homework and was always getting A's and B's for everything, except of course for games. Pops had never ever talked with John. Pops somehow had been persuaded to go to see a rock band from Liverpool called the Crossbeats. From Liverpool, Pops thought, cool. Another word that hadn't yet been invented, but Pops was light years ahead of his time. The word cross should have given Pops a clue to the trap he was walking into, but it was too late. The band had started playing, and anyway, there were lots of girls there, so it wasn't going to be that bad. He was just going to keep his head down. Then it happened. Someone was calling him chicken, although not quite in so many words. One of the guitarists was saying, "If there is anyone brave enough to find out the claims of Jesus Christ, then they should come out to the front and talk to one of the group." Pops just couldn't resist the challenge. He couldn't have cared less about the claims of Jesus Christ, but he wasn't a chicken, so out he went. But a big mistake. John, the geek, was there talking to people about Jesus. He was a Christian. Pops looked for the exit, and before the trap was sprung, Pops escaped. John, it turned out, wasn't just a Sunday Christian. He was a Monday Christian too. In Monday lunch break, Pops was in the playground with his mates, playing a game that is apparently illegal now. His mates were all bigger than he was, but because Pops played rugby with them, scrum half, and because he could be cheekier to the teachers than the rest of them, he was well in. John walked right up to Pops, pushing through his mates, and said, "Do you still want to talk about Jesus?" Pops was stunned and did the only thing he could do, swore at John a lot. He made a stupid joke to his mates and turned his back on John, hoping he would never see him again and that his mates would never ask what that was all about. Late at night, when Pops did most of his thinking, he had to admit to himself that John the geek had a lot more guts than ever he had, and he felt ashamed. But luckily there was another day, another stupid joke and another game to play. It took another 3 years before Pops stopped the stupid jokes and came to Jesus, but John had planted the seed. Suceava is a town east of the Carpathian Mountains in Romania. It was the last night of a week's tent mission. All the local churches had been involved, and many people had opened their hearts to the gospel. Amongst the people who had responded, Pops spotted an old lady dressed all in black, shuffling forward, waiting for someone to talk to her. When Pops looked again over the heads of the crowd, he could not see her and presumed she'd gone home. Pops liked to go back to places where missions had been held to see how people were doing and if they were going on with Jesus. Pops asked about the old lady who responded on that last evening, and this is what he was told. She had travelled back to her village and immediately started telling everyone what had happened to her, that Jesus had come into her heart and made her happier than she'd ever been. But a lot of the villagers, especially the local Orthodox priest, didn't like what she was saying and threatened her to keep her quiet. When she didn't stop talking about it, they threw bricks at her little cottage and broke all the windows. In response, she hired a minibus and took as many young people who wanted to go into Suceava to the youth meetings that had started after the mission. To thank her for being so kind to the young people, the priest persuaded some of the local bullies to drag her out of her cottage, tie her up, and hang her upside down by her ankles from her own apple tree, and then beat her with rods. She was so grateful she started a youth church in her cottage. When all the young people from the village and surrounding farms flocked to her cottage, the priest and the bullies had to stop their persecution because of fear of being chased out of the village by irate parents who had seen such a change in their children. Pops still doesn't know the name of that little old lady, but Jesus does.